So I saw a question on my video on how to read PDFs on Kindle about what to do with file sizes that are over 25 megabytes. So I wanted to show a couple of ways that you can get those files that are larger than that size onto your Kindle. Now I think it's important to point out before we get into this, it's going to work best for more text heavy files. If you're trying to do something like I've seen some PDFs that the scan in of the book, the each file or each page of the book is basically an image, and you're not going to be able to shrink down or compress the size enough for something like that because it's not going to be able to extract the text to get into Kindle. But for some other types that are more text heavy, this option might work for you. So let's check it out. So let's have a look. And I found a couple of examples. We'll try both of them. And one of them is this Neuro Goals playbook that my friend Josh created. And it's 63 megabytes. The other one I found that was just in my Google Drive was a sample of some of these pages from the Heroes Journal, which is like a free download, and then there's like a physical copy of a journal that they have. So this one looks like it's going to be more image heavy on the pages and the way it extracts. What we're going to need to do is open up the PDFs in Calibre. There's another video on getting your own EPUBs into your Kindle on the channel that you can check out for how to use Calibre for that. That's the one solution that I think is going to be most realistic to shrink down the size, because you're not you can take a PDF and you could just cut it down to size using something like Acrobat, or even if you go into the file in, say, Explore in on Mac in Preview, if you open up the thumbnails, you could technically cut, however many pages out of the PDF to shrink it down and just delete those pages in Preview. And that would work. That would get the file size down so that you could put it onto your Kindle. So the first thing we're going to do is convert the PDF into an EPUB. And this is going to shrink down the size, sometimes quite substantially. I even saw like a copy of my coaching psychology manual that's in PDF go from 138 megabytes down to small enough to fit. But the problem was the formatting of a textbook did not look very great when it went into an EPUB format. So it'll work for some types of files and not so well for others. Let's just try it first with this Heroes Journal, and we're going to convert the book. Make sure the output is set to EPUB, and let's just see what happens. Don't go through anything else, and we'll see what happens, because you can edit the EPUB after if you need to shrink down the file even more. So just click OK. We'll see what the file size comes out to be. And I'm going to do the same thing. So it's done now, the EPUB. If I click on it, and if we go through, we can kind of see how it's going to look. Again, this is like an image heavy one, so the EPUB is going to have all the images. Now it looks like everything's pretty well intact, which is nice. And so maybe, if it's like a comic book or something that you're trying to get into your Kindle that's in a PDF format, sometimes it might actually come through. And of course, these are all images. You can zoom in on these even on a Kindle or on the Kindle app, and it'll work out pretty nice. If we look at the file size, though, it didn't shrink it down that much. So it's still, as the EPUB, it's still 31 megabytes. So let's try this. Let's go into Edit Book. And under Edit Book, you'll find under the Tools menu, there is an option to compress images losslessly. And it's going to show you here all the images. You can actually pick and choose which ones you want to compress, or if you want to compress them all. And then select to enable lossy compression of JPEGs. I also usually click on both of them. I think mostly it's going to be JPEGs or .pngs, and you can choose what image quality. So let's reduce it. Let's put it at the 50 here and see what it does then. So we're getting like a 23% reduction in each of the images. And if we look at the file size now, doesn't seem like it's gone down enough. Okay. Actually, because I didn't click save, now that I've done that and clicked save, it's actually 22 megabytes. So we went down from 37 on the PDF to 22. And let's see how it looks if we send it over to Kindle. Now, I'm going to try it with my buddy's book. This one is, again, each file is going to be an image, and that's why it's so large. Like, it's not going to pull the text when we convert it to an EPUB. This is an example of one that probably is not going to work as well, just because the size and the way that is going to be formatted. But we'll see what it does. I'm going to convert it into the EPUB. And of course, when you send these over to Kindle, it's going to take longer than some of the other files because it's still, like, for example, that Heroes Journal EPUB is still like 22 megabytes. So it's going to take a lot longer than if you're sending like a normal book that you were going to send over for it to get inputted into your Kindle. So be patient with it. It might take 10 or 15 minutes or something. I'm still waiting on it to come on over. So I'm having a hard time converting my buddy's NeuroGoals playbook. I'm going to stop with that one. And let's look at how we would do it with that other attempt or that other style. So this is another way that you can get those larger PDFs onto your Kindle. You're going to have to break it down into smaller file sizes because the only way that you can get a PDF or any file over 25 megabytes onto Kindle is if you shrink it down. So it takes a bit more work, but depending on what it is that you want, that you're trying to get onto your Kindle, maybe it'll be worth it for you. So I'm going to see how this works for us. I'm going to make a couple of duplicates of this NeuroGoals playbook, and I'm going to open up each one of them. And I'm just going to name them quickly for the sake of this test. I think if we break it down into 3, it should be enough. So it's 17 pages, but again, they're all images. So let's just try keeping the first 5 images, or no, we'll do the first 6. I'm going to delete the rest of them. So now there's only 6 images in this one. It's still 36 megabytes, so we actually are going to have to shrink it down further. So if you've got a file like this, it's really not going to be ideal if you've only got a couple of pages, but just to see how this would actually play out. Four to 6. So as you can see, if you're on Mac, you can pretty quickly like break down these documents by just deleting all of the pages that maybe are not useful for you. If you've got like a really large image that's taking up a lot of that file size or something like that. So You can also just break it down into several pieces. I'm just going to do this for the first two pieces because you can see how we can do that through the entire PDF, but then you can send those to your Kindle so you can email them off like you saw in the video. So once you've chunked down those different pieces of the PDF so that they're smaller than the 25 megabyte file size, it might take a bit of work, but depending on what it is, if you really want to get it on your Kindle, you can do it this way. And that will allow you to then have those smaller files on there. You can then just email those from your send to Kindle address that I show in that other video, and they're going to be sent off and into your Kindle. So I don't know what's going on, but I can't get our example of the Heroes Journal to go through. I think maybe there's a server error or something with the send to Kindle email, but I did add that example of part of the NeuroGoals playbook to my Kindle, and as you can see, it shows up great. You can zoom in and read, so this would work great if you were willing to chop up, a comic book or something that you wanted to get on your Kindle that is over that 25 megabyte limit. And of course, there's only a couple pages on here because that's all we could fit due to the file size of each of these images. But if we also compressed it down, we could likely get more images, maybe double the number of pages if we compressed the file size down using Calibre before we did this. Or also you can compress the files just in preview for the PDF. And if you're willing to go through the work of doing that, you could create like a collection. So if you've got a bunch of those chopped up, you could put them all within a different folder on here so that you can then add, if you had a bunch of them, just add them all into that one collection. And then when you go in to your collections, you could just read through each section of it and kind of keep track that way. So that would work. I know it's a bit of work to do that, but at least that way you can get those large PDFs onto your Kindle if it really matters to you.